Hi guys, I'm back tonight as Original Book Nerd, and today we have a very special guest, Taryn Knightley, who is about to release her debut romantasy, Immortal Origins, which this is the first book in a new dark-ish romantasy series, and it's more like what, young adult to new adult?
Definitely not young adult. Definitely not young adult.
You
I
never
would
know
say
what
that
to rank them now.
I would say that book one kind of might read a little young adult just because it doesn't fully explore the adult themes that will be coming in later in the series. Book one is a lot of character introduction, a lot of build up into the world, but the dark in the dark fantasy aspect of it doesn't really refer to the romance, but it does refer to the world. It is going to be a gritty, dark world with a lot of aspects of our society that I think are really important to kind of touch on. So I would say that yes, you can read it if you are under 18. I would say discretion advised for sure.
I personally never like to judge young adult because who knows in today's society what is what. But as Taryn said, she is the special guest tonight. And how are you tonight, Taryn? I know it's 9 o'clock for me and it's early morning for you right now. So you're getting ready to go into your release week right now.
Yeah, no, I'm really, really excited. It's kind of starting to feel real. It's my debut book, so I don't think my brain is like fully computed yet that it's no longer just a file on my computer, but it's like an actual real thing and like a real book. And I honestly I don't know. I feel like it's gonna feel really real when Wednesday comes out and then it's just out there in the world and then it's no longer just this idea and concept I've had for 2 years, but like real thing. I'm really excited.
And you had something unique pop up on your doorstep this week, which was the first author proof that you were able to get. And I don't know if you
Yes.
have it handy, but can you tell us what's different about this
Yeah.
full copy that will never be done again?
I love this copy. So yeah, this is the first copy ever printed, and it really special in my heart. I did a lot of research when I first started on kind of like what would make a good fantasy book, and matte did come up quite a few times that it does look more professional, and so I was like, okay, let's try it. Personally, I do think that with the colors that I've chosen and the cover that I created, I think glossy is really going to make it pop the way that I want it to with the colors that it does have. So this will be the not only first print edition of the hardback cover, but it's also the only matte cover that's ever going to exist, unless Amazon makes a mistake, which hopefully not. But this will be the only version that will not have the glossy kind of feel to it, but will have the matte reveal. And then I do have the paperback, but this is going to be my copy as the second one ever printed that I keep just as like a fun little thing for me. But yeah, no, I love this book. It finally came. Holding it in my hands is honestly the most incredible feeling in the entire world. And I was like, especially as a lifelong reader, just being able to look inside of it and be like, that's actually mine. Like I wrote that one. Was really an incredible feeling.
And I just want to say congratulations because the hardest part is putting it out there. So the hard part for you is done. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess besides writing the next ones, but you've taken the leap.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think that's one of the things that I didn't quite fully expect was how many early readers I would get. I hoped. I did hope. But I really didn't expect there to be so many people who would want to beta read and arc read. So I do think that I'm going into the actual debut of it a little differently because I do have a pretty good idea on how readers are reacting to it. So now the excitement's just built up even more to where I don't really have the nerves of are people going to like it? Like I do think it's finding the right readers and I do think people are enjoying it. So now it's just kind of that excitement of getting to share it with even more people. And hopefully it just goes out into the world and I can just get it into the hands of people who will also continue to love it and probably people who won't, but that's okay. And just really get to share it with people.
So you touched on how you had a wider pool than we have seen previously with a lot of indies with beta and arcs before release. I had a few questions. They're a little bit different than how I start out. I do have a lot of questions about the book. But as an indie author, you have grown a really big platform for your debut already before release has even hit the shelves. How is it different for you with how you did your outreach and how you kind of connected with readers before you even had the book ready for them to either beta read or arc read? Because you had huge pools of both.
Yeah, honestly, I was really surprised when the beta readers started coming out. I was like, wow, people actually want to read this. It's my first book that I ever wrote. So I don't by any means think like it's probably going to be the best thing that I've ever written. I'm very proud of it, but I knew going in that, this is something new that I've tried. I've been a writer my whole life and I've been a reader since I could read. And I've always loved fantasy, especially classic fantasy. I wanted to stay open to what readers might have to say, and even being open to the fact that maybe this book wasn't it. Maybe it was, great first try and, good job, but maybe move on to something else. So when I opened it to beta readers, I just opened it to anyone who wanted to read it. I was like, if you're open to reading this, you want to give feedback, like I want to hear what you think. Over the course of a month, 1,500 people signed up. And I didn't accept everybody just because some people, you had to be a little careful with some of the applications and stuff for sure. Like you can't send it to just absolutely everybody, but I sent it to every trusted account that I could find. And the response was really incredible. I really tried to bring people onto my journey as I was going through it. So I started early in a lot of Facebook groups to where I would just get into writers and reader Facebook groups. I would ask people what they liked. I designed my own covers. So I had so many different designs in the first go. I knew exactly what I wanted my titles to be. I planned and plotted all 5 books before ever even starting the first book. So I had a pretty clear direction of where I want the series to go and what it's going to look like. So from there, I was like, okay, well, what cover feels like this series? Like, what is going to call to people? And what type of fantasy cover is even going to get the demographic of fantasy readers that I'm looking for? Because it is a very specific demographic. It is a fantasy with a romance subplot, and it does have a lot of aspects of thriller, mystery, romance. So it is a dark fantasy because of that. I think will reach to a lot of fantasy readers and has, thankfully. But first, I wanted to just make sure that I even had something that would catch those readers. So I let people vote. I put a bunch of my covers in all these different groups. And I was just like, you guys tell me. I was like, what do you like? Which cover speaks to you? Here's my genre. Here's kind of like the overall vibe that I'm going for. Which of these covers gives you that feeling? And people voted on the design. And then from there, I did different colors of those designs. So I did different combinations, different looks. And then I posted those and I let people vote again. And I was like, what do you guys like? And finally, we did get to a version of this one, which I was still really happy with, and I think you can actually still see.
Out in the great day on the
Storygraph.
Facebook.
Graph. And finally, I learned a little bit more with editing and just kind of digital design, and I got Procreate. And then so I redrafted that final design that everyone loved into this one, which I do think is a little more professional, a little more put together, and something I'm super, super happy with. So I think really getting to bring people onto that journey and to also make people feel involved in the actual process, not just involved in a way they get to watch, but actually participate. I think people really, really responded well to. And I'm open to feedback because I genuinely believe in this series, but I'm also open to that things may need change. Maybe I need to adjust a direction or maybe I need to try something new. So I really want to listen to readers' feedback and hear, what do you guys like? What are readers responding to? What do people enjoy? And if it also aligns with my vision for what I have for the series, then why not go with that direction if that's also what readers would like? So yeah, I think honestly that was a huge part of it. I really do. My beta readers, I took a lot of their feedback and I took a lot of my ARC readers' feedback, and I even went back in, added more chapters for my bonus chapters based on early ARC reader feedback that I did agree with and was like, yeah. I was like, you know what, that would make it better. And I do truly believe that with everybody's help and everybody's feedback along the way, this really became what it was supposed to be in my vision and what hopefully readers will also enjoy and what people want. But I really think that might have been part of it to where, I mean, I have a lot of marketing experience in social media marketing. I was a content creator before doing this. So I do know how to reach a target audience, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I know how to create a final product for that audience. So I think bringing them along the way and making it feel participatory was a huge part of how those numbers came in. And hopefully how it gets a lot of success on release day.
Well, I love the cover. It's funny because before I even knew it was on, because you use book sirens for your art, and I love and hate book sirens for many different reasons. Mainly, I can't review on Amazon, and that's really one of their huge criteria for ARC readers is, can you, review on Amazon on release? And I'm like, well, no. But I was seeing, well, one, I saw you on Threads so much, but I was seeing your posts with the cover and with your character art because I love fantasy character art. And that's what got me into wanting to read it, was the banner you had. Your banner when you click on Taryn's Instagram account, her banner is "You wanna know more." And there's a lot of great banners out there, but the way you did, like, the half faces and then the cover in the middle, you immediately go, "Okay, well, who is who? I wanna know." So, I wanna say, like, good job on that, and I feel like that's probably your, like, I used to do content creation, so you knew how to kind of, your aesthetic is very pleasing, and I've loved seeing how ARC readers and everyone has been supporting you
I know,
loudly
it's been
on
crazy. It's been
on social
crazy.
media. But we'll get into the book questions now. I have some fun ones for this one, and for you guys tuning in, since we are before release, me and Taryn are doing something special for you all. So you can watch this one, get a brief overview about the book, decide you're going to read it now. Hopefully, you're going to read it now. We both think you should read it now.
I think
And
so
then
too.
those of you who watch to the end, next week, we are going to air a second episode. And the second episode is going to be the fun one, where we dive into some maybe potential spoiler questions and maybe even some questions about what to expect going forward. Who are your favorite characters? Any of the lore, because I am a lore junkie and I am very curious about some of the lore Taryn used in this fantasy world she has created.
Talk about it all day.
But again, that's going to be in the spoiler episode to prevent someone from having this book ruined before they can even begin, because it truly is one you want to experience kind of blind going in so you don't have preformed opinions. But my first question, your tagline is "Champions are fated, not even God can interfere." There's a second part on your Amazon blurb that goes on to say, "Once a name has been given, it can't be taken back." I love the tagline. It gets your attention. How hard was it for you to make that tagline? And do you envision this tagline being able to transcend through the rest of the series? Because after reading, that's all I'm gonna say is after you read it, you will understand.
Yeah, so actually, like I said, I had the entire series planned and plotted before ever writing the first one. So a lot of what's going into the first one is so many little nuggets and Easter eggs for the rest of the series that I've read my reviews because I'm a little bit of a sadist. But a lot of the feedback that I got was that some people feel like there are plot holes or there's so much information that hasn't really been tied up yet, and that was all very intentional. Like I said, book one is kind of the introduction to the entire world that we're about to get to see. And as a lifelong fantasy reader, I when a fantasy series, you read the entire thing through and then you just loved it so much that you have to go back and read it again. And then on that second reread, because you made it to the end, you really get to see all the little things that the author put inside of it to really tie that entire story together. And I knew that's something that I really wanted to do with my series, and I really wanted to emulate that feeling for my readers to where when you get through the final book, you go back and you're like, wait a minute, you're like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I just wanted a lot of those little aha moments. And the tagline is very specific. It's very, very specific. It was chosen a long time ago before anything else was written. It was like the very first thing that I ever wrote for the series was just those two first lines. And that was essentially the entire encompassment of the series. And so, yes, the taglines are going to be very important and part of the Easter eggs that are in the overall series. So, yeah, no, it's going to be, I'm really excited about it.
And tagline is "Personally for romance, it's marketing gold," because we are very much in that dangerous trial champion type phase right now in the romance and the fantasy genres. But that second line is the one that hooked me because not even gods can interfere. Because the first thing I thought was Greek mythology, deadly trials, someone might die.
A lot of people will die.
And I do a lot of alpha projects for other indies, and they always tease me because the first thing I say to anyone who I read for is, please tell me someone's not going to die in the first chapter. But this book, I was like, I can't wait to see what she does. Because I both hate it and I love it. Because I love it when you throw those curveballs. But I'm also like, I always pick the one character that has to be unalived. And I'm just like, why?
Same.
Why
It's
do I
always
have
my
to
favorite
like him?
Well, and I think because I'm the same way. Usually when I fall in love with a fantasy book, it's always the character that I fall in love with that ends up getting killed somewhere in the series. I actually just did a beta read for a friend of mine. You guys have to do an interview with her. She's amazing. Her book comes out in October. A Vow of Shadow and Blood. Charlene, I love you. Like her, oh, I literally felt the rage that I think a lot of my readers felt reading my book, just because like I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to spoil anything for her book, but it just yeah, I understand the feeling well. I understand the feeling very, very well. And I think that that's kind of something that also came through in my writing to where I almost intentionally made people love these characters a little bit or really tried to make, like, it's always the side character that you just love. And I also just didn't want anything for shock value. I wanted every interaction, every character. It may not feel like it yet because it's just the first book, but the entire series, like everything is planned so intentionally that I don't want it to just feel like, oh, well, that didn't really have anything necessity to it that was just for shock value. Like it's all very intentional. And it's very intentional for the reader to give them a certain feeling. It's also very intentional for our main character and the journey that she has to go on because she is a very flawed character. And I like that about her, is that she does have a lot of fiery determination, which we love in an FMC. But at the same time, she needs to be flawed. Like she has a lot of character growth that she needs to go through that I am happy. A lot of people did get annoyed with her and were kind of feeling those feelings that I wanted to feel because it's also part of it. Like the entire point of this series and of especially the first book is to realize the power that we all have inside of ourselves. But to do that sometimes also means stepping outside of ourselves. It means getting out of our own way, getting out of our own head, but also being able to stand on our values and to stand on what's right and the humility to be able to know when you're wrong. And that's really something that I want to encompass with Ambrose throughout the whole series and her rise to where she's going, because I can't say, but I really wanted that in her and I wanted those flaws to come through and I wanted every character in it to feel like a real person, feel like somebody that you could have just met or somebody that you can relate to where everyone hopefully who reads the series will have somebody that they connect with and hopefully they feel reflective about and someone that they can see themselves in or someone that they've known and hopefully influence them or help them in some way through them feeling so real, but also in this incredibly magical world with so many things going on and so much happening in the scenes that these are just real people that are just dealing with all of it.
For Ambrose and even Acadian, you have very distinct names for all your characters.
Yes, I do.
But I want to touch more on Ambrose because her name, to someone who may not read fantasy or might be newer as a reader, Ambrose is a more masculine, it's a stronger name. And if I'm remembering correctly, it also has a very distinct meaning if you Google what Ambrose as like the name mean. Was that intentionally done? And was she always going to be named Ambrose?
So the names are actually kind of like one of the second things I came up with. I was like, okay, well, I have my world now. And I was like, I have my overarching plot. I have my main characters. I have my big bad. I have like the big bad for each book because there will be a different big bad for each book. And then also the final big bad. And so I literally was just going through so many websites trying to come up with names. And I knew that, yes, I did want the names to be meaningful. I wanted the names to have a reason behind them. Not all of them I picked because of the direct meaning. I did with Ambrose specifically and intentionally. Also, I just like it. I just like it. I think it's pretty, and I do think that, yes, it's more masculine than that is some of the feedback that I got early on. Some people liked it, some people didn't. It was a stylistic choice that I think some people who were really attached to it being a male name were like, I couldn't get past that, which is fine. But I really like it, and I also like for where it's going to go in the story, and it is kind of one of those Easter eggs. A lot of the names in the book are series Easter eggs, so if somebody really wanted to spoil it for themselves, they could go look up the characters' names in the book. And most of them,
Totally did that. I'm a name junkie though. I have a name chart for authors that I work for, and I have names in a list and their meaning and their origin and where they're used and like is it in this mythology? Is it in that mythology? Is it that religion? And so yeah, that was the first thing I did.
and so like I'm the same. I love mythology. I love history. I love all types of mythology and ancient history, which you can probably tell if you've read the first book. A lot of people were able to catch like some of the mythologies and like scenes that inspired a lot of parts of it, and including some of the names. So there are some names like Acadian that you can't Google the meaning and it will tell you, but it's still an Easter egg. But you have to be like honestly a pretty niche nerd in history and mythology to understand the reference, which by the end of the series, some people might catch, but I've been down too many rabbit holes that it might be a very, very niche reference that I might have to explain later. But most of the names, most of them, not all of them, some were just cool sounding, like Magnus. I just thought that sounded cool for an old mage. I was like, that feels ancient and whimsical, but fun. So some people, not everybody's does, but the main cast, if you wanted to, you could go Google it and spoil it. But yes, it was very intentional.
I love fantasy books that have great names. I love actually good names in a book will get me to read it.
Every time.
And as someone who also has a name that can be both male and female, I like to use Ambrose in a different. I always love it when an author throws that twist and you read the blurb and you're like, so is this going to be the male or the female? And then you get to the end and you're like, this is different. I like it.
Yeah,
And
some people vibe with it, some people didn't.
I did like Acadian's name though too. I may or may not be in that really, really small niche you were just talking about. But I'm a huge mythology nerd, and everyone loves to tease me about it because they look at me and it's not the first thing people think when I say I'm a nerd. I get, oh, you read a lot, or oh, math and science. Then I'm like, actually, fantasy stuff, mythology.
Like it goes further than that.
The Reddit threads that just rabbit hole you. And then you're like,
Oh my
but this
God.
person is wrong.
Yes. No, I get so into it too. And especially Acadian's name, his is kind of like honestly the most major spoiler because it's so niche that I was like, if somebody gets it, I was like, honestly, you'll understand more of the overarching final plot than I think the majority of people will. But it's also such a niche subsect that I'm waiting for the day that somebody's like, oh, is this this? And I'm be like, no, maybe. Like,
My next question is about how you kind of set up the romance aspect because you do have a few books planned. So while this technically it's a slow burn because you're not exploring some of the more adult themes, but there are a couple at the end of this book, or at least you know they're going to be a couple at the end of this book. How are you? And tell me if this needs to be in the next episode. But as far as like their romance and the development of their bond, how did you, when you sat down to plan it, go into it knowing like this is how I need to arc it without kind of, speeding it up? Because while we all love a good spice scene, I do like it when in the fantasy romance in long series we draw it out and you really get to like see both of them. And for those of you who don't know, Acadian's View is coming. Taryn's been talking about it on social media. So when I say it is coming, you will get both sides of the story. We'll get to get into his side of view shortly at some point soon.
yes, hopefully within the next year by the time the sequel also comes out. I would also like to have Acadian's POV book come out, but because it's also an entirely separate book as well, I'm writing both of them simultaneously. So my goal is to have Acadian's POV out sometime this year, hopefully have the sequel out around the same time next year, hopefully around the fall. And I would also like to combine Acadian's POV and Ambrose's POV into a special edition omnibus, which would be the Romantasy specific edition. So this is technically a fantasy with a romance subplot, which is why it's also such a slow burn, because the romance really is a subplot. But with Acadian's POV, we're gonna get to see more of that yearning because he falls first hard, flat on his face. And she's just going through all of this.
Good.
And so she's just like going through the ringer. And so we'll really get to see his perspective and kind of like, because he's watching her. That's like his task for the book is that he's been assigned to watching over her. And so we really get to see more of his perspective on that and like what he's thinking, like what's going on also behind the scenes, which we get a little bit in his POV in the few chapters in the book, which I put those into this book because I do think they are really important for the overarching plot in this part of the series. But his book will definitely focus more on that romance aspect. So I thought combining those would be like the perfect romantasy edition to where we get to see, yes, the overarching plot and everything going on behind the scenes and all the pieces getting placed on the board, but we'll also get more of that romance for the readers who really wanted more romance. Because some people who are a little more diehard romantasy people really wish there would have been more romance. So that's kind of like, okay, guys, like I hear you. I agree. I think it'd be fun, but I am a diehard fantasy romance subplot girly. I always will be. I love a good fantasy book where the romance is a subplot, but I also do love romantasy. So I thought that would be kind of fun to combine the two of them for like a special edition. My hopes is that will be out next year. It is in the works. I'm working on it. It will be out. I just don't have a date for sure yet.
I think I can get away with it here. We'll make it work. But I want to know more about how you developed the champion aspect and kind of this whole warrior kingdom where, train in secret, there's a lot of other stuff going on as we're learning about the nuances in this book. But for you, because the champion aspect is so vital to how you launched this world and the series you're building, what aspects of champions and that vibe that you get when you really think about like mythical gods and like the champion type, races and trials they teach us about in like mythology classes?
Well, one of my favorite mythologies was always the Hercules story, just because the original, because it's so brutal. It's so brutal. And it's so brutal. And I remember reading as a kid and just being like shocked. Going from like Disney Hercules and then actually like reading the actual Hercules. And I just have always kind of loved that idea and concept, especially it kind of started at the Greek gods, but really expanded into everything to where I love the idea of gods just like being gods, but also just being, can I swear? Just being complete assholes to like all the just beings on the ground. They're just like constantly have their hands in things, constantly meddling, just for the simple, just like they can and they want to. And so I really liked that, and I wanted to kind of play on that a little. So I love a good games and trials book. I do. If you give me a set of Deadly Tournament or Trial, I'm there like every single time. And so, but I also wanted to do my own spin on that. So for me, the entire series is the set of trials, which was a little different. And I think also kind of threw people off a little bit, which I went back into editing and I made sure it was kind of a little clear that the Champions Tournament was simply the first trial. But there's going to be 4 trials that she goes through the entire series. And so I really wanted to kind of play into that. But that's also why the trials, at least the first one, is really only like the last like 30% of the book. Like she's got to go through
She's got to
all
go
of that
through the hard stuff to get to the trial first.
just to get there. And it's because I really want the trials to feel earned. I don't want them to just happen over the first book and she's just kind of fumbling her way through them. I really want you to get to see the growth and the character development to each trial. Because in my opinion, I mean, the entire point is that, without too much spoilers, but the entire idea and concept is that, if somebody defeats the trials, that they get to win their place in the kingdom of the gods, which isn't some kingdom up in the clouds that no one can touch. Like you could walk to this kingdom if you wanted to. It's in the southern part of the continent. I drew it. I made my map myself. So it is a floating island, so it kind of technically is in the sky, but it's also not. Like we have our little land bridge and like so if the characters wanted to, they could walk to the kingdom. They're not going to get in, but like they could physically go to it if they wanted to. And I really loved that idea of like the gods actually being on the ground, being like kind of amongst everyone, but they're also still like, well, we're the gods. So like we're still, you guys are over there. We're still here, but like you do your thing. So I really wanted, and I think that if somebody is, going to enter the kingdom of the gods, or essentially, that's why everyone enters the champions tournament, because they want to be, I want to go to the kingdom of the gods. Like, I want entrance. I want to be given the right to go there. And the gods are like, cool, yeah, you can, but like, you got to be worthy. We're not just going to let like anybody in. So I really wanted that to feel earned. I want that to feel like it's something that she really had to work towards. And so I wanted it to be the entire series so that each book and the trial that she goes through, we really get to see more of the world as she gets to explore. I really wanted it to be kind of like things are introduced as you go so that as she's learning, the reader is also learning. But it's not in a way of confusing or info dumpy. It's kind of like you're right there with her, just these aha moments. I'm like, oh, wow. And then like, where is it going to go? Where are we taking this? And I really want that build up before each trial. So it was also a stylistic choice that some people also may or may not have liked. But I'm hoping that with the second one, people are kind of really going to get to see the full scope of what the trials are going to be, and especially as she gets towards the end and what all of that is going to accumulate to.
So, going off of full scope and stylistic choice, this book was done in third person, which is a hot topic right now in
Yeah.
both the fantasy, the romantasy, or I should say all three, and the romance community of authors saying, well, should I keep it in third person? You kept yours in third person. You've had tremendous feedback. And I have to say, personally, I don't always read third person. Fantasy is that one genre where I'm like, if they do it right, I will read it and I will love it. And obviously, because I volunteered to read some of those chapters you were throwing around a few weeks ago, I loved it and I want more. Like, Feel free to, like, drop in any more at any time because I loved it, and I like to get it to hold it over people's heads. I'm kind of masochistic sometimes because I can't talk about it, but I can, like, talk about it, if you know what I mean. But for this series, when you sat down and you said, "I'm gonna craft this world, and I really want to get to a point at the end where you've seen the whole scope, you're getting all of what's going on." Was that something that tied into why you chose to do third person?
Part of it is also just kind of habit. Yes and no. I've been reading fantasy again, like I said, my whole life. So just because of that, growing up, a lot of the books, I don't know how old you are, I don't want to age you, but I feel like we're pretty close to the same age. So a lot of the books that we had growing up were just written in third person for fantasy. It just kind of was the stylistic choice at the time. And so it's just kind of also how my writing voice developed because it was the majority of what I was reading to the point it was actually kind of hard for me to get into a first person book. Now I've been reading for so much longer, and that did change stylistically along the way, probably I think 10 years ago or something in the fantasy genre. I can't remember.
No,
But
can you believe I'm, like, 20 years old this year? Can you? My friend texted me that yesterday, and I was like, "Oh my god."
I know. So honestly, it
Sorry,
could have been.
I totally went off script, but you were, like, talking about ages and how, like, 10 years ago it changed, and I was just like, "Oh my god, they're doing a 20-year anniversary."
I know. And so,
And
like,
I'm
yeah,
totally gonna go, but, like, oh my god.
For real. So like I think, yeah, I think it just kind of developed at that point because of that. Like so much of what we were reading back then just was in third person. And so I read more in first person now because stylistically it's kind of the direction that we've gone. But at this point, I've been writing for so long that my voice just kind of got solidified in third person. But I knew for a fact that I also wanted it to be in third person omniscient for a reason. So Ambrose is not the narrator. A lot of people think she is. She is not the narrator. She is not. The narrator is very good at being inside of her head and guessing what is in her head for a lot of the time. But yeah, no, the narrator is outside of the story and kind of just this. I mean, I'm not gonna spoil that too much, but the narrator is not Ambrose. And I knew that I wanted omniscient for third person because I wanted to be able to get in anyone's head. I want to be able to show you the characters moving around the board because there are a lot of characters. And especially going into book two, there are going to be characters that people are going to meet in chapters who aren't even in the same kingdom as her at the time. Like, so all of these pieces that are going to be coming together, the only way to really be able to kind of put those down on the board is through third person omniscient. And again, a lot of people don't necessarily like third person, let alone third person omniscient. But I also try to take a lot of that feedback to where the majority of what I hear that people don't like about it is they don't feel like they get to get in the character's head. They don't feel like they can connect with them as much. It doesn't feel like they're in the character's shoes. So I did try to write that to where even though it's still third person, you still feel like you're just there. Even if you're not in Ambrose's head, that you're right there next to her, almost like a fly on her shoulder watching, but you also have like an insight into what she's thinking and feeling the whole time to where even if you don't fully feel like you are her or stepping into her shoes, it feels just as immersive to where that doesn't matter. You still feel like you're right there. You're part of the story, almost like you're a character in battle with her or right next to her watching all this happen. And like you get the little secrets and insight. Also, I wanted the reader to be privy to things that she's not privy to. Like, because there's so many pieces on the board, I need the reader to know something that she doesn't know yet. Or maybe she's misinformed on, or maybe she doesn't fully understand. But I want to leave those Easter eggs for the reader along the way. It's kind of also like this ode from the narrator to the reader, like, we get to know this, but nobody else does yet. And I think that really makes it more fun. And also, I love mystery and thrillers. So that's one thing that I really wanted to bring into this book is really bring in that thriller aspect of like the reader's kind of along for the ride, but they're like, oh, the character doesn't know this. And I really wanted to encompass that. And I think I did it well. People are responding very well to it. I really wanted to throw all of my favorite genres into this series. I wanted monsters that would give you nightmares. I wanted tension. I wanted romance. I wanted mystery and just this overall epic story that will come into it by the end that really was only possible through doing it in that POV. So hopefully people will like it regardless.
I will
We shall
say
see.
I like it. I like the way you did it for that reason, because my biggest thing in fantasy is there's so many great fantasy books, but I'm always like, but I want to know what XYZ was thinking on page 10 when he's like not here, not on the page, but I know later on his or her reaction is going to be in the third book. Tell me, please, please. really nicely, but tell me. And I like how you did that. Don't nobody, like, yell at me for saying this, but one of my all-time favorite fantasies is The Throne of Glass, and I know I'm on that bandwagon.
I've
But I
actually
was
never read
also
it.
on that bandwagon because she does have that element where it's third person and there's multiple points of view we get. So you get to see the world and not just through that main female character. You get to see other characters as they travel out. And that's one of my favorite things that authors have the option to do. So when you started doing it, I was like, thank you, because I'm not gonna have to message her at midnight and be like, Taryn, please tell me what was going on over here on this continent, on this side. Because I have some thoughts and I have some theories and I really don't want to be wrong. So it was nice to have that. So kudos to you for having the forethought to include that. Because I know that was probably a lot of elemental planning, and you're like, how am I going to continue to do this throughout how many books? My last in depth question, I have this one, and then before we tune out this regular episode, we're going to do 5 rapid fire character based questions that might trip her up, might not. They're my favorite part because I always try to throw in some that trip you up. But my last question, this is for the artist out there because your cover is gorgeous and so is your character art. This whole series is Ambrose's story, correct? So, Red and Gold are book 1. Are the covers going to kind of have that same kind of almost like dark regal theme? Because the cover is very like classic fantasy. And, I don't wanna put you into that square box of classic fantasy, but it's what you really expect when you go to the store and you're like, "I want a fantasy book." So will the covers kind of continue on this just kind of clean and polished, title pops out at you, and then you have your fancy elements that you add in? And will they be different colors? That's what we all
Yes. So the covers were the second thing that I planned. After I plotted out the series, I came up with the titles. That was like one of the first things that I did to encompass what's going on in that book. So each title is very, very specific to the overall journey. And then, yeah, so the colors were actually chosen because these are the colors of the kingdom that she's in while in this book. So for the first book, she's in her home kingdom, which is crimson, silver, and gold colors. So the cover, crimson, silver, and gold. And then each little element on top of it is actually a little Easter egg to what you're going to find inside the book. And I also just love Baroque style. I eat it up every time. And I love classic fantasy books that incorporate the Baroque style. Again, I'm probably more influenced by a lot of older fantasy books because I've been reading for so long that I knew for sure I was like, I love the Baroque. I love that classic fantasy feel when you pick up a book and you just know it's a fantasy book. And you're ready to snuggle in with it and you're cozy and you're just like, yes. So each cover the colors will correlate with the kingdom that she goes to for each book. So I want to show the readers the entire world. So each book, she's going to be kind of traveling throughout the entire empire and the entire continent, visiting a different kingdom and really kind of showing how big her journey gets and how big the world is because it's incredibly large. And it starts out very small for her in book 1. She has a lot of feelings about it and she has a lot of opinions about the world, which she fully doesn't even understand yet because her world's so small, which we really get to see her start to realize in book 1 and gain humility with that, even at the level that she's at, thinking that, like, I don't want to spoil too much for anyone who does want to read it because I do think it's a good book to go in as blind as possible, which is also why I've refrained from marketing certain aspects that a lot of people tell me would really help the marketing. But I'm like, but that's a spoiler. I want you to know that when you read it the first time and you get that feeling of just like, oh, and you just want to keep going. So yeah, no, the books are all planned. I'm already working on the third cover. The second cover is done. I've already finished that one because after this book comes out, I'll pretty quickly be marketing for book 2. And then I've already started working on book 3 for that cover. And I'm loving how they're coming out and look together. I've got all 3 of them already side by side in my files. And I'm just like, they're gonna be so pretty. And I always include the number on the spine. I can't stand now that no one puts the book number on the cover or the spine.
You're right.
No one does it anymore,
I
and that
have
drives me
some.
nuts.
I have some special editions. The special edition companies always put the numbers because I feel like that's the number one complaint is we wanna know,
What
especially
book it
what
is?
especially the bestseller editions now, that it's a hot topic. Sometimes titles and the synopsis on the back is just like a random quote, and I'm like, but I need to know what order to put them on my shelf. Like,
Yes.
I love it. I love the quote. I love the design, but tell me what order they go in on my shelf.
Yes. It's so like that's something I really try to make sure I immediately have in the cover when you go inside the book, the entire series plan, so people know what book's coming next, the order of the series as it'll be released, and the number on the spine so that everyone will know how to display it on their shelves, because as a reader it drives me nuts that nobody puts numbers on the book or the spine anymore. So that was the first thing I did. I was like, it's got to have a number on the spine. It's got to. It's going to drive me crazy.
We are running out of time for this overall episode for Taryn. I have 5 fast-paced questions to close out the episode, and then we'll be back next week with a more fun, spoilery type favorite scenes, worst scenes, favorite quotes, that type of episode. But my first fast-paced question is, which god revision that you include in book 1 was your favorite to include in book 1?
Well, which of the gods? Spoiler. That's a spoiler.
Which one was
I
your
will.
favorite to research for this book? It might not be the same.
Well, for these ones, I created gods completely out of my own concept, but I did want them to correlate with the elements. So the magic system is elemental based, and it's kind of a very physical magic system to where like everything in this universe is held together by magic. It's just kind of like, if it was atoms and particles, it's just kind of how everything holds together. It's like the glue of this universe, and some people can use it, some people can't. So I really wanted each god to kind of correlate with one of the major elements, which again, I also won't spoil, but there are 10. And so each god was very kind of specifically like, once I figured out what element they were, I kind of played around with like, okay, well then how does this element make me feel? Like, how do I think this god would act based on this element? And how do I feel like their flaws would be or their character art would be? And I will say, I don't want to spoil. Casimir is one of my favorites just because he's really fun to write. I really wanted a villain that was just a villain for being a villain. He's just a psychopath. Like, there's no other reason for it, maybe. And he's just completely off the rails. Like, he has no empathy. He has no morals. He's just doing it for the sake of doing it. So I do like him for that, just because it's kind of fun to get in his head as a character, because as a longtime horror fan, I get to kind of play with my morbidity a little bit with him, which sometimes I'm like, well, people are loving it. People are loving it. So I'm like, okay, maybe I didn't. Like, maybe I didn't. I had to look up some weird stuff to figure out how to make him as evil as possible. So maybe I didn't. But I will say my favorite is someone you guys have met, but I won't say him. And I also can't say why, but I will say that.
So the next one will be easier. The first character that comes to mind when you think, oh my god, I have to go inside their head again. Maybe not.
Honestly, I don't think I have one. I really enjoy all the characters and the heads that I get to get into because they're so vastly different. I mean, from Ambrose to Acadian to Casimir to Valdis, like, it's so fun getting to jump into each of their heads because they're such different characters that it's honestly, I don't really dread it. It's kind of like I have a playlist too for each of them, so I really get into like the vibe of each person's head. That honestly, it's really fun getting to play with it and be such different characters, especially in third person, to where I'm not doing it from Ambrose's perspective. I really get to be in that character's head, which just challenged me as a writer, but it's also really fun because then I get to be like, nah, I get to be this character.
Favorite side character?
Probably Louis. I love her character arc, and I have so much planned for her in this series, and I really like her, and we get to really see her more in book 2, and we get to really, and I think I'm already like a quarter of the way done with the draft for book 2, so I'm really getting to see how her character is actually getting fleshed out for the series. So she might be my favorite. But I also like Magnus because he's just like the classic like old wizard and old mage, and he just wears robes that are shiny and to his feet, and he just loves magic, and he's just whimsical, and I do really like him. So it might be a tie. It might be a tie between those two until book 2. As of right now, I have a new favorite side character that no one has met yet, but I adore her and I think she's amazing, and I'm loving writing her, and I can't wait to show all of you guys who she is, and she's just adorable.
The second to last one is, what word comes to mind when you think of Acadian?
Misunderstood, for
Now,
sure.
the last one will be, what word comes to mind when you think of Ambrose?
I have like a few. That one's hard. She's a little harder to pin down because she has so much that's going to go into her character arcs that I probably have 3 major ones that I think will encompass her in the entire series, and it's humility, strength, and determination. But she's got a ways to go to get there. She's got the makings of it, but we'll see how she actually develops into it.
Well, that wraps up our pre-release episode. So tomorrow is Sunday. This book releases on Wednesday, and next Sunday we will have the fun spoiler episode for you guys. So grab it when it comes out. This will be on Kindle Unlimited.
Yes.
Yes. So it will be on the Kindle Unlimited, so you can read it under the plan. Flip through the pages, give her some Kindle pages. We love to support our indie authors on this channel. I just love to support indie authors because they do the grunt work in the publishing world. But thank you, Taryn, for joining me tonight. I loved getting the brief overview of this, and I'm really excited to dive into some questions that we might be able to answer some spoilers.
I hope so.
But we'll go ahead and sign out tonight and then tune in next week. Comment, subscribe, review. Everything helps. Aaron, I believe, also has a giveaway going on right now. I don't
Yay.
know if it's still going to be going on when
Yes.
I post my teaser tomorrow, but we do have a giveaway on her page for something
Yes.
special. We're not
Yes. So
gonna spoil it, or
it is actually, well, I can tell you guys, yeah. So it is for the first edition hardcover. I really want this book to go to a home that loves it as much as I do, especially because it'll be the only matte edition and the first printed edition. So I thought that would be really fun. I'm going to do an annotation of it so that people can kind of get my thoughts as I go and sign copy. And I just thought that would be fun. And it will be active until September 10th. So people can enter until then. I wanted to give people enough time to find it, get into it, especially after reading it. If people really loved it and that still gave them a week after release to go in and sign up for it. So yeah, that's open to everybody. It is international, so
and enter it, but like, let me have the chance to win it. I'm totally
there's a lot of
go enter it, but also like be a friend? Question mark.
You can also recommend people if you do want somebody else to win and you just want to give them a shout out. You can tag this person, be like, I'm entering this person to win. So it's open to everybody.
I actually have entered it. I might have screamed when I saw what the prize was. Annotated books are like gold. I have a whole shelf that you can't see right now that is just annotated books, and they go with me everywhere. But we will be back next week, and thank you again for joining me, and thank you everyone who tuned in to watch.
Thank you. This was so fun. Thank you for having me.